Good morning and welcome to Kimberly's vlog series as we're continuing with Reading Between the Lines, Volume 2. And we're looking at Matthew 10:26 to 27. And the title of today is Shout from the Rooftops. So our author's talking about open air preacher, and he says, do you have to bother other people with that stuff? Can't you just stick inside our churches? So the author goes on to say about how he says that we're quite happy to have our public spaces filled with commerce and everyone trying to force us to buy everything with no problem at all, but our beliefs we are to keep private. And I can definitely see where he's coming from with this. So folk can practice their personal piety behind closed doors, he goes on to say, but we fiercely protect our public places. Virtually everything else we have to seek permission to advertise our faith and other faiths. Advertising agents are free to preach their consumer message, but no one will mind, and preaching the Christian gospel will attract much opposition. We should stick inside our churches, is what he says. Jesus doesn't think like this. He says in Matthew 10 that there is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in the darkness, speak in daylight. What I whisper in your ear, proclaim from the rooftops. So what could be more private than your own home? And Jesus says, do not close the door or shut in the truth. Climb to your house and publish the truth. Your roof is not a prison to confine your beliefs, our author says. It's a platform to confess them. Even your abode is not private, it's a pulpit. We do not have a privatized faith, but a proclaimed faith. How could it be any other way? As they say, the good news is for sharing and not just to live by. So God's own truth has always been seeking an audience. From the beginning, God has had a word, and he's always had an outgoing expression of that. And he has not kept his word to himself. He's created the whole cosmos to be hearers of his word. As Paul says, every creature under the heaven has the gospel of Christ preached to them in Colossians 1:23. So God is preaching the gospel from his home in heaven. From his home in heaven, the skies are proclaiming the works of his hands. We read this in Psalm 19:1 and 2. So God's shouting from his rooftop. How can we feel any different? In every sense imaginable, the truth will out. If we don't feel something of the outgoing impulse of the gospel, we haven't yet heard it as we ought. We have a faith to be shouted from the rooftops. So he says, let me leave you with a word from George MacLeod, where he thought about the lengths to which Christ, the Word, has gone to meet us in our darkness. He couldn't help but recommend the outgoing public proclamation of this word. I simply argue that the cross be raised again at the centre of the marketplace, as well as on the steeple of the church. I am recovering the claim that Jesus is not crucified in a cathedral between two candles, but on a cross between two thieves, on the town garbage heap at the crossroads, so cosmopolitan that they had to write the title in Hebrew, Latin and in Greek, at the kind of place where cynics talk, smut and thieves curse and soldiers gamble, because this is where he died, and that is what he died about, and that is where the churchman ought to be, and what churchmen ought to be about. When you know the gospel, how can you not shout it from the rooftops? So I was very challenged about shouting from the rooftops. I'm a very quiet person, those who know me, and shouting from the rooftops I don't do much shouting, but so it's a challenging, but obviously we're encouraged to share our faith, because how can we not share our faith? And it's wonderful to be part of a church that is growing, and the faith is being shared, and the gospel is changing people's lives. And how can you not share that? How can you not share the stories that we hear from week to week, or stories of God's work in people's lives and changing people's lives? and that is a wonderful story to share. And I do find it difficult sometimes to know how to share my faith. And I found most recently the best way is just to tell people of the wonderful stories that we get to hear about at our church, at various churches across the globe, that we get to hear about lives turned around. And the good news is that the freedom that comes, the hope that comes. And one of my colleagues was asking me how or why people that are suffering with addiction come to faith, and I told him that it was the hope that it brings. And when he's very fortunate that he probably hasn't been in a situation where he might be hopeless, and unfortunately I feel as if I have, and God brought me through that, and many of us will know about that in our own lives, and how wonderful it is that God has brought us through those occasions. So yeah, let's shout it from the rooftops and share it, our faith, and share what God is doing and bringing hope through Christ our Saviour. I hope that's blessed you this morning, this afternoon, whatever time it is, and see you again soon. Bye.